Chapter 11. Catherine listened for her father when he came in that evening, and she heard him go to his study. She sat quiet, though her heart was beating fast, for nearly half an hour. Then she went and knocked at his door, a ceremony without which she never crossed the threshold of this apartment. On entering it now, she found him in his chair beside the fire, entertaining himself with a cigar and the evening paper.
"I have something to say to you,"
she began very gently, and she sat down in the first place that offered.
"I shall be very happy to hear it, my dear,"
said her father. He waited looking at her, while she stared in a long silence at the fire. He was curious and impatient, for he was sure that she was going to speak of Morris Townsend. But he let her take her own time, for he was determined to be very mild.
"I am engaged to be married,"
Catherine announced at last, still staring at the fire. The doctor was startled. The accomplished fact was more than he had expected, but he betrayed no surprise.
"You do right to tell me,"
he simply said.
"And who is the happy mortal whom you have honored with your choice?"
"Mr. Morris Townsend."
As she pronounced her lover's name, Catherine looked at him. What she saw was her father's still, gray eye and his clear-cut, definite smile. She contemplated these objects for a moment, and then she looked back at the fire. It was much warmer.
"When was this arrangement made?"
the doctor asked.
"This afternoon. 2 hours ago."
"Was Mr. Townsend here?"
"Yes, Father. In the front parlor."
She was very glad that she was not obliged to tell him that the ceremony of their betrothal had taken place out there under the bare ailanthus trees.
"Is it serious?"
said the doctor.
"Very serious, Father."
Her father was silent a moment.
"Mr. Townsend ought to have told me."
"He means to tell you tomorrow."
"After I know all about it from you? He ought to have told me before. Does he think I didn't care? Because I left you so much liberty?"
"Oh, no,"
said Catherine.
"He knew you would care. And we have been so much obliged to you for the liberty."
The doctor gave a short laugh.
"You might have made a better use of it, Catherine."
"Please don't say that, Father,"
the girl urged softly, fixing her dull and gentle eyes upon him. He puffed his cigar a while, meditatively.
"You have gone very fast,"
he said at last.
"Yes,"
Catherine answered simply.
"I think we have."
Her father glanced at her an instant, removing his eyes from the fire.
"I don't wonder Mr. Townsend likes you. You are so simple and so good."
"I don't know why it is, but he does like me. I'm sure of that."
"And are you very fond of Mr. Townsend?"
"I like him very much, of course, or I shouldn't consent to marry him."
"But you have known him a very short time, my dear."
"Oh,"
said Catherine with some eagerness.
"it doesn't take long to like a person, when once you begin."
"You must have begun very quickly. Was it the first time you saw him, that night at your aunt's party?"
"I don't know, Father,"
the girl answered.
"I can't tell you about that."
"Of course, that's your own affair. You will have observed that I have acted on that principle. I have not interfered. I have left you your liberty. I have remembered that you are no longer a little girl, that you have arrived at years of discretion."
"I feel very old and very wise,"
said Catherine, smiling faintly.
"I am afraid that before long you will feel older and wiser yet. I don't like your engagement."
"Ah!"
Catherine exclaimed softly, getting up from her chair.
"No, my dear. I am sorry to give you pain, but I don't like it. You should have consulted me before you settled it. I have been too easy with you, and I feel as if you had taken advantage of my indulgence. Most decidedly, you should have spoken to me first."
Catherine hesitated a moment, and then,
"It was because I was afraid you wouldn't like it,"
she confessed.
"Ah, there it is. You had a bad conscience."
"No, I have not a bad conscience, Father,"
the girl cried out with considerable energy.
"Please don't accuse me of anything so dreadful."
These words, in fact, represented to her imagination something very terrible indeed, something base and cruel, which she associated with malefactors and prisoners.
"It was because I was afraid, she went on.
"If you were afraid, it was because you had been foolish."
"I was afraid you didn't like Mr. Townsend."
"You were quite right. I don't like him."
"Dear Father, you don't know him,"
said Catherine, in a voice so timidly argumentative that it might have touched him.
"Very true. I don't know him intimately, but I know him enough. I have my impression of him. You don't know him either."